The summer season is knocking on the door. What can we expect? Will this be a summer to remember? The answers are all ahead as we bring together our team of expert meteorologists in this Files One News special report, Summer of 18.
Welcome and thank you for joining us for this Files One News special report, Summer of 18. I'm meteorologist Brian Fitzgerald. This half hour, we ride along with the Coast Guard to talk beach and boating safety. We'll track the latest on the upcoming hurricane season. We'll discuss how flooding and how emergency responders prepare for that. And we take a look at tornadoes in our area. Meteorologist Joe Rayo joining us now with a very exciting summer. Joe, you're calling it an M&M summer?
Well, one M is for Mars, and the other M is for meteors. And for sky watchers and stargazers looking up this summer, it indeed is going to be quite exciting. In fact, earlier on in the spring, I was at Rockland Community College, where there was a gathering of space enthusiasts and astronomy experts on what we can expect to see in the skies of July and August.
Thanks so much, Joe. You can't have a conversation about summer without talking about beach and boating. But it's not all fun and games. Meteorologist Jeff Banson tells us why.
With the summer season on the doorstep, I ventured to the beach on a warm, sunny day to meet with some of the people who know safety best, starting with a visit to the U.S. Coast Guard station. After a short briefing, we embarked on their daily safety drills to help prepare for actual life-threatening situations.
So we want to have all the steps down comfortably so that we can maintain as much of a level as calm as possible. You know, if we show up and we're calm, it's going to bring their nerves down too.
First up, we practiced pumping water from a compromised or sinking vessel. We then moved on to the man overboard drill, which began by throwing a weighted, mannequin-like float into the water to simulate an actual person.
Man overboard! Stop the water!
Next, a floating search marker, or datum, is deployed.
Datum, which is the most probable location of a search object provided for drift over time. If he fell in the water and we lost sight of the person, that's where we start our search. One of the key things is to make sure that someone on your boat maintains a visual on that person. If you lose sight of the person, you need to throw something else in the water, a seat cushion, a life jacket, something that'll float and drift with the current at the same rate as that person in the water. So when the Coast Guard arrives on scene, we have an accurate position to start our search. Don't panic. Fear is the #1 cause of drowning.
Back on land, some final parting safety tips from the crew.
If you're drinking, don't be driving the boat. It's not just you out on the water, it's going to also be other people and their families, so keep them in mind as well.
Please don't forget to check all your safety equipment and make sure you have life jackets on board for everybody and make sure that they fit everybody.
Next up, the beach, to visit with 2017 New York State Lifeguard of the Year, Carrie Epstein.
Walk me through a typical day in your life as a lifeguard.
It's the lifeguard's job to be the first one at the beach and be the last one to leave the beach. You come in the morning, you open up, you set up all your equipment, you lay out all your buoys, you get fully set for like the busiest day you could possibly have, even though it may be the slowest day you possibly have. The reality is people could get in trouble on any day. And it doesn't really matter whether the water's flat and calm or whether you have big surf and rip currents. So if the lifeguard gives you instructions or gives you, something to do from the lifeguard stand, do your best to try to listen because it's probably for your own safety. Most importantly, everyone that comes to the beach leaves the beach alive.
Lifeguards also need to account for the day's weather forecast.
If you know beach weather, you know that beach weather could change on a dime. Rain, all good, right? The beach will stay open and operational for rain. What we do take serious are lightning and electrical storms.
But it's hardly just another day at the beach for them.
You're out in the elements all the time, you're tired. We put ourselves way more at risk than your average Joe for skin cancers, melanoma. We have to be attentive, we have to be sharp. If we are not paying attention to what's going on and you miss something, someone's life could be lost.
Tell the average beachgoer one thing to take with them.
Safety first. Swim near a lifeguard. Don't go in the water if there's not a lifeguard on duty. And when in doubt, don't go out.
We are so fortunate to live where we do, just a stone's throw away from the water. But the next time you're at the beach or on the boat this summer, take the time to stop and remember that safety is an important part of having fun in the sun for you and your family.
Now to meteorologist Joe Chaffee, who looks at hurricane season and the most recent data. We look back at the nor'easters from this past winter to see if they have any impact on the future forecast.
Last year's hurricane season was a blockbuster. Hurricane Harvey, a Category 4 hurricane, ravaged Texas with wind destruction in South Texas and nearly 5 feet of rain in Southeast Texas. Category 5 Hurricane Irma ripped its own trail of destruction across the Leeward and Virgin Islands before ripping across Cuba and then inland along the west coast of Florida as a Category 3. Then Hurricane Maria tore the Leeward Islands apart before cutting Puerto Rico in half as a Category 4 hurricane. Then came our crazy wild winter, capped by not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 nor'easters in March. Last year's hurricane season kept the National Hurricane Center very busy with Irma, Maria, Harvey, all major hurricanes. Fortunately, none of them came up the East Coast. The National Weather Service office here in Upton on Long Island was kept very busy with the winter, particularly March, where we had 4 nor'easters in 2.5 weeks. The question everyone is asking is that pattern of nor'easters along the East Coast from back in March, does that mean we're going to have an active hurricane season here along the East Coast? Thankfully, meteorologist Patrick Malloy of the National Weather Service says the answer to that question is no.
The latest research shows that there is no correlation between the amount of winter storms we have, how long they last, how frequent they are, how late in the season they are, and what we're going to get in the summer. So we can't say with any certainty that there's number of winter storms means anything to the number of hurricanes we're going to see.
While we saw no direct hurricane activity last year, some things have changed since Hurricane Sandy. Long Island is seeing some changes in how flooding takes place during coastal storms.
We've seen more impacts along the south shore of Long Island, especially in the Great South Bay, a little further east than we used to, whereas before the main impacts used to stop at Nassau County, now we're seeing it creep into western parts of Suffolk County, Lindenhurst, maybe on over to Babylon and Patchogue. That's been one of the bigger changes across Long Island. The other place in which we've noticed more flooding than we've been aware of in the past is in the bays out in Riverhead and Peconic and that area out on the Twin Forks.
New this year from our local Weather Service office will be graphics and maps that will highlight flooding potential so that you can make decisions that impact you if a hurricane threatens. New Jersey counties bordering New York Harbor have also seen some changes in the flooding profile that have made it somewhat less vulnerable to severe coastal flooding. The Jersey Shore remains a problem for a storm that takes a track from the southeast. National Hurricane Center's Storm Surge Inundation tool has yet to be tested for our area, but it will be there along with new graphics and forecasts to improve time of landfall. I'm meteorologist Joe Chaffee, FiOS 1 News.
From hurricanes to tornadoes, meteorologist Addison Green looks at the most recent outbreak in the lower Hudson Valley and explains why this isn't always such a rare occurrence.
When you hear about tornadoes, you probably think of images like this from the Great Plains. But did you know we can also get them here in the tri-state area? From 1950 to 2015, we saw 138 tornadoes impact our region. The strongest one to hit our region to date was an F4 in Hamden, Connecticut, back on July 10th, 1989. However, most of the ones we see are weak, EF0s or EF1s. And very recently in mid-May, our region was impacted by severe thunderstorms that produced several tornadoes in the Hudson Valley area. Dear God. 4 tornadoes hit the region on May 15th, with the strongest one being an EF2. It had peak winds of 115 miles per hour when it hit Kent, New York, in Putnam County. You might think tornadoes here are kind of rare, but we saw at least one touchdown last summer. Last summer, Chief Meteorologist Brian Fitzgerald was standing right here showing you the aftermath of an EF1 tornado that touched down here. We're going to go inside, speak to Mr. Ross, the owner of the home, see how things have improved since then, and to have him show us how that damage was back on that day.
Well, my hearing's not great, so I had earphones on watching TV when the weather event happened, so I didn't know much until I took my earphones off, came and found that this room, a large tree had been torn apart and impacted this sunroom very severely.
Storms like the one that impacted Mr. Ross's home are forecasted for, monitored, and tracked right here on the east end of Long Island. That is the Doppler radar right there, and that is the dish that scans the skies, locating those storms, and when the storms are coming our way, give us those fine details to see how powerful those storms could be, and that information gets brought in right here inside the National Weather Service office in Upton. Inside the office, meteorologists work around the clock, taking all that data they get and produce forecasts for the entire tri-state area.
Whether it comes to exactly where you're at, you aren't going to be able to tell just looking at the sky and feeling the wind. But that darkening of the sky, the clouds getting big and tall on the horizon, and an increase in the wind at your area is a sign that it's probably going to get rougher, relatively soon.
There is one tool that is a good idea to have to keep you informed and safe.
Everybody should have a NOAA weather radio. It's part of being a prepared family, a part of building a weather-ready nation. It provides instantaneous alerts. As soon as we hit send on a warning in our computer system, within seconds, NOAA weather radio is going off, alerting you that you have a storm.
Even if you don't get a tornado from a storm, they can still bring about dangerous elements such as hail, damaging winds, flooding rains, and lightning. Don't forget the old saying, when thunder roars, go indoors. For Fios 1 News, I'm meteorologist Addison Green.
Coming up, we sit down with our expert team of meteorologists to discuss the upcoming summer season. Plus, meteorologist Brittany Bohr looks into river flooding in New Jersey and some of the devastating impacts over the years. Welcome back to our Fios 1 News Lower Hudson Valley special report, Summer of 18, and we're here with our expert panel of Fios 1 meteorologists. I'll tell you guys, it's my favorite time of year. Sit around and just kind of mash out the forecast, and the topic, of course, is the Summer of 18, Joe. And we think about the most recent tornado outbreak here in the Lower Hudson Valley, some of the flooding events, but what's coming to your mind?
Well, in recent weeks, we have seen extremes. We've seen extreme heat. We've seen unusually cool temperatures. You just mentioned the tornado, very active conditions. And I think we're going to go see this right on through the upcoming summer season as well. The Climate Prediction Center is forecasting an above normal temperature span for the summertime, also above normal precipitation. But I really don't think when we get to the end of the summer, we won't have an ability to really break this all down. Maybe a few things will pop up that come to mind, like a storm or a particular heat wave or whatever. But I think we're going to see a wide variety of things happening over the course of the summertime. And again, wide vacillations from extreme heat to also extreme cool.
No doubt about it. And with that comes the thought of hurricanes, Joe. And when we think about hurricane season, now sure, we have the Westchester Sound shore, and they are prone to flooding in the right event when you're getting that onshore wind coming into the Long Island Sound. But when you push further inland and we think about other storms like Irene, like Sandy, they bring their own impacts to the Lower Hudson Valley, and one of them's wind.
And the winter storms that we had really highlighted for the Hudson Valley just how compromised to some degree the infrastructure is, the electrical infrastructure.
Sure.
Power outages were a huge deal through the March nor'easters. And going back, wind during Hurricane Sandy, these big wind events that can be translated with these hurricanes offshore into the Hudson Valley are going to be problematic. And if we wind up in a situation where we have a lot of tropical moisture coming up over a long period of time, days and days of rain, it does open the possibility up to some flooding. So these are all considerations that we're going to have to look at going forward with regards to how the Hudson Valley deals with all this.
And when we're thinking safety, Jeff, of course, the one thing that comes to mind, I mean, big topic in the Hudson Valley is beach and boating. Now, folks are going to be heading down to the water lines, but they're also going to be doing boating, not only on the Hudson River, but the Long Island Sound and the many lakes that we have. And safety is a huge factor.
Right. I mean, with the number one thing, and it's a shame that I have to bring this up first and foremost, but BWI's boating under the boating either while intoxicated or under the influence.
Sure.
It's the same designation as if you're driving a car. 0.08. That's the limit. You can't be doing that. You can't be doing both. You can't be doing that and driving the boat.
That seems confused by people sometimes. They're like, oh, that applies to boating, but it does.
Right. You know, it's even worse when you're boating than when you're driving. You drive every day. You have a little more practice there, but you're also not out in the hot sun, getting that sea spray, the motion of the ocean when you're on the boat. Those things help to, you know, you're kind of out of it at the end of the day. And then you have that alcohol in your system, and that just exacerbates the problem. So you can't be doing that. That is first and foremost. Too many deaths. 15% of all boating deaths, related deaths, where they found a cause, were because of boating while intoxicated.
Not to mention, when you're on the water, there's no road signs. It's just everyone's going every way.
Exactly. And then, you know, you go away from boating here in the Hudson Valley. We have the Hudson River. You know, people think, oh, yeah, it's the river. It's flatter. It's not as prone to, you know, tides and things like that. It does have tides. You know, it's one of the few rivers that actually has tides, and the water can get quite rough in situations like that. So you need to have your life jackets at all times, whether you're on a boat, on a paddleboard, on a water bicycle, anything, if you're by yourself.
Sure.
That's important.
And you know, Jeff, speaking of rough conditions, we just went through a pretty bad severe weather outbreak, Addison, and that was something you've been studying and looking into for us. You know, 4 tornadoes just in the lower Hudson Valley reported, even more than that if you expand that reach. And you know, they were deadly events as well. And that's not something we see often around here, but it does happen.
Yeah, we only get these type of instances like once or twice during the summertime. Like last May, we had an issue where a tornado touched down in southern Dutchess County. But we don't typically think of tornadoes in this part of the country. But to have 4 of them in one day and have it so early in the season, it's kind of unusual out there. And speaking to some of the residents up across Dutchess County, up across Putnam County, they were definitely caught off guard in terms of this volatile situation that came through that day, but they were definitely prepared by getting those tornado watch issued and getting those tornado warnings issued.
Sure. And the one thing I noticed is even our phones now with the new technology and the new iPhones and the Google phones and everything else going on, the phone immediately, tornado warning, boom, it's buzzing. Doesn't matter if you have silent, it doesn't matter if it's on quiet, the phone's buzzing away. And I think that was a huge factor for people. And when we speak about severe weather, it's not only tornadoes, Addison, but it's also flooding. And Brittany, I know some of the flooding aspects, people sometimes kind of put second rate, but it's not. Right?
Absolutely, Brian. So when people think about severe weather in the summertime, they think tornadoes, wind, lightning, hail, but they really don't think that flooding is as big of an issue as it is. It's the #1 weather-related killer in the United States. So if you live in a flood-prone area, you need to be on the lookout for these conditions because it can happen in as little as a few minutes or as much as several days after a rain event.
And when you're looking at river flooding or creek flooding, you know, keep in mind that it can impact everywhere, right? And so like even roadways, like, okay, it's an underpass, but you have to realize that if that river or creek may be flooding, the road could possibly even be compromised. There's all kinds of aspects that go with it.
Absolutely. There are all sorts of hidden dangers that could be in floodwaters, sharp objects, bits and pieces of houses, any kind of debris, live electrical wires. People don't think that, you know, they're trying to get out of a situation. They're wading through water, and then you're in a situation.
No doubt about it. And you're not going to want to miss Brittany's story because she goes in depth talking about flooding in northern New Jersey and all the aspects and historical aspects that go along with it. So we've got that coming up. Plus, Joe Rayo tells us it's going to be an M&M summer. Mars and meteors. More on that right after the break. Welcome back. We've moved outside the FiOS 1 studios. You know, river flooding is a major issue for many New Jersey residents. Meteorologist Brittany Bohr shows us what's being done to prepare for that next big flood.
Along with the summertime sunshine and heat also comes the risk for severe weather, like hail, windstorms, hurricanes, and even tornadoes. These aren't even the deadliest aspect of summertime severe weather. The most dangerous? That would be flooding. With floods being the #1 threat to life and property in the United States, you and your family should be prepared when flooding rains are in the forecast. I met with Tom Surrow and Bob Atkinson from the U.S. Geological Survey to learn more about floods and how river forecasts play an important role in keeping people safe.
In my mind, one of the things that I think people they underestimate flash flooding is that flash flooding happens rapidly, but it doesn't happen immediately after the rain happens. It takes time for the rain to actually hit the landscape and make it down to the river.
Rivers and streams can overflow their banks in a matter of minutes to hours, and when rivers are running high, it does not take an extremely heavy rain event like a hurricane to cause them to move into flood stage. During Hurricane Irene in 2011, this location crested at almost 23 feet. To put it in perspective, the water was rushing over the bridge behind me and spilling onto the road. Rushing water is a force of nature that should not be taken lightly. Only 6 inches of rapidly moving water can knock an adult off their feet. 12 inches can wash away a car. 18 inches of rushing water will move larger vehicles.
If you live near a flood-prone area or you are going to drive through a flood-prone area, have some kind of plan, because it will happen. I mean, a lot of people ask the question, I've been asked this question a lot, is it going to flood again? That's an easy one, because the answer is yes.
I met with experienced emergency responder Michael Borer, who happens to be my cousin, to discuss hazards associated with flooding that could impact you. It's common for standing floodwaters to conceal toxins, chemicals, sharp objects, or even live electrical wires. Michael's advice?
Heed the warnings. Like, if someone is saying that there's going to be a bad storm, please take warning. Stay off the roads if you can. Do not travel. Do not touch any power lines. And just let the first responders do their jobs.
These events are very common in our area. Please stay informed and have a plan to keep you and your family safe this summer.
Wind, rain, Mother Nature is a powerful thing.
For FiOS 1 News, I'm meteorologist Brittany Borer.
Meteorologist Joe Rayo joining us now for what looks like is going to be a very exciting summer. Joe, you're calling it an M&M summer?
Well, one M for Mars, the other M for meteors, and we will have a chance to see both in our summertime sky. Earlier in the spring, Brian, I went down to the Rockland Community College where they had a tremendous gathering of space experts and enthusiasts, and I talked to 2 of them who are going to cue us in now on what we can look forward to seeing in the summertime night sky. It happens every spring, and it happens in the village of Suffern, New York at Rockland Community College, which, for the 27th consecutive year, hosted the biggest cosmic exposition in the country, NEAF, better known as the Northeast Astronomy Forum, a 2-day indoor and outdoor affair attended by thousands of space aficionados, including many notable experts in the field of astronomy. And while I was there, I connected with 2 people who cued me in on 2 special celestial events that we all should look forward to in this summer's night sky. Meet astronomer Kelly Beatty, a senior editor at Sky and Telescope magazine, who alerts us to a summer rendezvous we're going to have with one of our planetary neighbors.
One of the things that amazes me is the clockwork of our solar system. Planets go around, they don't go around at the same rate, and sometimes they come close together. Because the orbits aren't circular, sometimes they come really close together, and that's what's happening with Earth and Mars this summer. They'll be the closest they've come to each other since 2003.
In fact, during late July on into early August, Mars will be passing less than 36 billion miles to our Earth, closer than it will come to us until the year 2035. So, what can you expect to see in the nighttime sky?
Even if you're only a casual stargazer, go out once every few months, you won't be able to avoid this big, bright, strikingly ginger ale colored object in the sky that is the planet Mars. It will arrest your attention.
But why does Mars appear to glow with a distinctive red, or more precisely, yellowish-orange color?
Mars is red because its rocks are rusty. Literally, the surface of Mars has that orange cast to it from all of the oxidized iron there, and we see that to our eye as we look at Mars in the sky.
Mars begins to pull away from us during August, but the sky show isn't over yet. Another Sky and Telescope senior editor and astronomer, Alan McRobert, cues us in on another celestial spectacular.
The annual Perseid Meteor Shower, which always comes around in mid-August, around August 12th, lasting for several nights. This year, we've got a new moon. There's no moonlight in the sky that washes out the faintest meteors the way moonlight washes out the faintest stars. So we got excellent viewing conditions for that.
Another popular name for meteors are shooting stars. But the Perseids are not stars at all, but a trail of dusty debris and gravel that has broken off a comet named Swift-Tuttle.
They're remarkably tiny little bits of space debris, sand grain size to small pebble size. They're actually fragments of a disintegrating comet that are still following along in the old orbit of the comet. And every August, mid-August, the Earth in its orbit around the Sun passes through this stream, so we get this bombardment.
The Perseids get their name from Perseus, an arrangement of stars which represent an ancient hero from Greek mythology. It rises in the northeast sky after 10 p.m., and as Perseus climbs higher and the night deepens, meteor rates will begin to increase.
Be patient. This is not like a fireworks display. You might see a shooting star every minute or so if you've got good conditions and happen to hit the peak of the shower, every few minutes otherwise. But if you're looking for shooting stars to wish on once in a while, there will be plenty of them.
For best results, get away from the city lights. The darkness of the countryside multiplies the visible meteor rate 3 to as much as 10-fold compared to city views. And many families plan camping trips to coincide with the Perseids. But what if you're stuck in the city?
At least take a look wherever you can find a dark, shadowy spot with a wide open view of the sky. Bring a lawn chair, lie back in it, get comfortable, be patient, gaze into what stars you can see, and you might get lucky.
So whether you're an amateur astronomer or just a casual sky watcher, this summer is going to prove to be most exciting. The planet Mars making its closest approach in many years, and during the month of August, a celestial streaker event. Meteors, shooting stars. Call it an M&M summer. Mars and meteors. For FiOS 1 News, I'm meteorologist Joe Rayo.
Well, that'll do it for us, and on behalf of the entire FiOS 1 News weather team, we'd like to thank you for joining us for this special report, Summer of 18. Have a great day.